After completing the last two modules, you should have a solid understanding of what anger is and how it affects your body physically. In this next module, we'll start to learn about the cycle of anger. The goal here is to ultimately be able to identify exactly where we are in this cycle in real time during an anger outburst, so that we can empower ourselves to be able to stop the cycle from continuing. Along with this module, you will find the Cycle of Anger PDF, which you can print out or save electronically. This may be helpful to have so that when you find yourself in the cycle of anger, you can quickly reference it and identify what part of the cycle you're in. Here we go. Okay, so this visual shows you the cycle of anger. And it's important to learn that anger is cyclical in nature. If you're able to identify your anger throughout any point in the anger cycle, you'll be better able to manage, de escalate, or put a halt in its progression altogether. Most anger cycles start with a triggering event. So we discussed trigger events in the previous module. To recap, a triggering event is anything that activates a person's anger. This event creates a domino effect and gets the cycle of anger started. Examples of this could be a partner forgetting to wish you a happy anniversary, getting cut off, or being dismissed at work. Once our anger is triggered, we generally go to the next part of the cycle of anger, which is our negative thoughts are activated. When our anger becomes triggered, we can easily start to think about negative thoughts about either the situation or another person. So you might start to think things like, my partner never cares about things that are important to me, those jerks don't know how to drive, or my boss doesn't appreciate anything that I do. And I'm sure most people share the experience of negative thoughts generally do end in negative emotions. So once the triggering event starts, it leads to some negative thoughts, and then it generally leads to some negative emotional responses. So this could be feeling annoyed and frustrated by your partner, feeling rage towards the bad driver, or feeling mad that your boss hasn't acknowledged your hard work. Once we start having this emotional responses, we then lead to physical symptoms, which we also talked about in the previous module. So your body automatically responds to anger with several symptoms like racing heart, clenched fist, or sweating. And it's really important to notice what physical symptoms you personally experience when you start to get angry so that you can then be able to identify when you're at that part of the anger cycle. So once we have physical symptoms, we generally have some sort of behavioral response. So our reactions are usually based upon the thoughts, feelings, and physical symptoms that we're experiencing. So how you behave when you're going through the anger cycle depends on how well you're able to identify and cope with your feelings and how you've learned to express them. So not everyone expresses anger in the same way. So for example, some unhelpful ways you may have learned to express anger could be outward aggression and violence, such as shouting, swearing, slamming doors, hitting or throwing things, and being physically violent or verbally abusive and threatening towards others. You can show inward aggression, such as negative self talk, denying yourself basic needs like food or things that make yourself happy, cutting yourself off from the world, or maybe even self harming. And then some non-violent or passive aggressive ways to deal with your anger could be ignoring people, refusing to speak to them, refusing to do tasks, and being sarcastic or sulky while not saying anything explicitly aggressive or angry. And of course, unmanaged anger can have negative consequences on your health, like we talked about, your self esteem, the emotional well being of your children, your productivity at work. On a more extreme scale, it can lead to undesirable behaviors such as road rage, domestic violence, or physical assault. So let's dive back into talking about your health. It has been well documented that chronic high levels of anger are associated with an increased risk for health problems. How often anger is experienced and how it is expressed during times of emotional distress are significant factors in determining the impact on one's health. And then we can look at your self esteem. So, although the expression of anger may feel good at the moment, it often leads to feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment, and remorse. On a cognitive level, one might realize that his or her response was overblown, misdirected, and or unwarranted. The result in most cases is damage to one's self-esteem. Your relationships. So very few things can damage a relationship as much as the inability to manage one's anger. Frequent and or intense outbursts, whether verbal or physical, can destroy marriages, break apart families, and ruin friendships. You'll see the effects of unmanaged anger on your children. So the effect of children witnessing chronic and/or intense anger in the household can be devastating, often more so than the impact of parental divorce. And then in the workplace, what gets accomplished in the workplace, both quantitatively and qualitatively, can be severely compromised by poorly managed anger, frustration, and resentment.